I guess in pretty much entire part of the world. No, probably not on the west coast of U.S. and maybe even west coast of Canada and other countries, I guess. Uh, but the point is, it's super late here. It's almost two. Hey, oh wow, okay. My foster cat, she's scratching all over my yoga mat, and yes, I do have a yoga mat, and no, I don't do yoga. But I gotta take care of her, and I'll be back in a second. That's not your scratch pad, Missy. Well, this is why she's not on her own right now. I mean, I've confined her to only within my bathroom, so sucks. But you know, she gotta learn how to be mindful and gentle with me as well as with everything around me. You know, if she starts scratching furniture and yoga mat, she'll stay in bathroom for a day or two longer. But she has her food, her litter box, and everything in her. And to be honest, like I'm still kind of like learning how different animals sort of behave, especially since I'm fostering her. She comes from she doesn't come from like any home, right? So she has been taken care of by the Atlanta Humane Society, and thanks to them, I can foster until we find a good, loving family for her, which should be anytime soon. uh, but she's cute, and I just got her maybe like 4 days back on Thursday. So we are still getting used to each other, and I'm gonna introduce her to the entire living space, which is what I did with my past foster. The the my very first foster, she was she took her time to maybe like a few days to come out of uh, her shyness or whatever. But once she was open, she was really chill. I loved her company so much. And I miss her. But at the same time, I'm happy that she is with a good family who and she also have a friend, meaning like one other cat. The family who took her also have one other cat, so she's in a good company. So I'm super super happy for her, and I hope that the cat I'm fostering right now, her name is Sprinkles, and she is a sort of sprinkle of joy. I mean, she kind of likes when I pet her. Uh, she loves head massaging, but she doesn't like it when I kind of like lift her or try to kind of like uh, what do you call like take care of her like a baby, I guess. I don't know. She doesn't feel comfortable when I lift her as of now, but I'm sure she's gonna warm around. She gonna come around. Uh, but today, let's stick to our plan of just going through different Wikipedia pages or random Wikipedia pages. I thought I fixed the error I was getting last time, but clearly not. So what I'm gonna do is create a new session. Yeah, technology, right? And we're gonna try and see if we can share this screen once again. Okay. All right, let's do this. There you go. Now we're talking. So today is Tuesday, and most of the part of the world. Um, so we gonna go to this random article and see what randomness will bring to us. So, Mr. Andrew Dahl, I believe. Andrew Keith Dahl. He's still alive. He's a rugby union former player and coach who gained one cap with Scotland in 2003. So he's a Scottish player, rugby player, and he gained a full international cap, and he became on as a replacement against Wales. But what exactly that even mean? Meaning, the who gained one cap. What is that cap? In May 2003, he was selected for 2003 rugby. Now, what exactly is the cap? Who wrote this article? Okay. Gained one cap with Scotland. Does one cap means like a outstanding player of the season or the series? No idea. But what is rugby union? Rugby union, commonly known simply as rugby, is a close contact team sport that originated in England in the first half of the 19th century. One of the two codes of rugby football, it is based on running with the ball in hand in its most common form. A game is played between two teams of 15 players each, using an oval-shaped ball on a rectangular field called a pitch. The field has H-shaped goalposts at both ends. And it's not a surprise, meaning like rugby is very similar to American football. And I'm kind of curious if rugby inspired the American football or other way around. But let's see. In 1845, the first laws were written by pupils at rugby school. Okay, so this goes back to 1845. And let's go to history. Rugby football stems from the form of the game played at rugby school, which former pupils then introduced to their universities. Former rugby school student Albert Pell what Mr. Albert Pell did is credited with having formed the first football team while a student at Cambridge University. Major private schools each used different rules during this early period, with former pupils from Rugby and Eton attempting to carry their preferred rules to their universities. A significant event in the early development of rugby football was the correction of a written set of rules at rugby school in 1845, followed by the Cambridge rules that were drawn up in 1848. Oh, so Eton is another school. Formed in 1863, the national governing body, the Football Association, began codifying a set of universal football rules. World Cup and professionalisms. So these are all set of rules, and I'm sure there are a lot of commonalities or parallels between American football and rugby, and I'm hoping that they sort of touch on that somewhere over here. Global reach. Yeah, I've seen a lot of rugby. Not Rod. I've watched one rugby game during my last trip to India, and it was kind of interesting because I've never seen a rugby game while growing up. So just seeing people kind of playing this unique game was an amusing experience for me when I went there, when I went to India last time. But looks like it's have been played since 1870s, which is not surprising considering a lot of British games got mixed up in Indian culture. When I say a lot, I know only two: cricket and rugby, but and even football. Uh, I don't know if soccer is. I believe soccer is some European game at the very least, if not English. But I'm trying to see if there is any parallels. Okay, okay, okay. She don't want me to pick her up. These are the variants influence on other sports. Rugby League was formed after the Northern Union broke from the Rugby Football Union in a disagreement over payment to players. It went on to it went on to change its laws and become a football code in its own right. The two sports continue to influence each other to this day. American football and Canadian football are derived from early forms of rugby football, which is pretty obvious. Australian rules football was influenced by rugby football and other games originating in English public schools, which is exactly what I was sort of thinking. It's okay. Come on. It's okay. It's okay. Oh, it's okay. Okay. Everyone, meet Sprinkles. Hey, Sprinkles. How are you, Sprinkles? Are you having a good time? Okay. Do you want me to put you down? Not that way. Do you want me to leave you down? Okay. All right. Go. Enjoy. Play. I know it's too late, and I'm gonna head to bed soon too. It's been streaming only for 12 minutes. I don't have like any goal of like streaming it for an hour, like I've been doing it for the past few days, but I definitely want to keep this going because to a certain extent I'm finding like a random things which I would probably never would have looked into. I mean, at some point I might have looked into rugby because it's a kind of renowned game. But some of the articles I visited yesterday and the day before, probably not. Even the article with which we started, the dude who played the rugby, what was his name? Andrew Dow. Why in the world would I even look up for his name? So that's why I kind of just like the idea of just bouncing from one Wikipedia article to the other and see where it takes me. But international, I'm kind of into sports, but not too much. I mean, at least not for past half a decade or so, or I would even say for a decade. I mean, back when I was in India, I used to be like, not just watching cricket. I used to like absorb cricket, play cricket, think about cricket, and speak cricket all the time. So I grew up in a very, very sports culture, I guess. But over time, I don't know what happened, and I sort of kind of deviated from watching sports, most of the sports at least, and now I hardly follow any sports. To a certain degree, I admire every single sport because that kind of display the courage and the athleticism and the capabilities of individuals. At the same time, pretty much all of the sports are, I would say, rotten by corporations. Maybe rotten is a strong word, but it sort of, it's touched with the corporation. So the game is no longer about playing for a specific country or a specific city for that matter, but I mean, even though they do on paper, but pretty much every athlete, they look up for the opportunity where they can enhance their career, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I'm all for that. But I feel that at times when corporations are kind of like mixed up, and then they kind of try to influence the game in the negative way, and that takes away the spirit from the game, and it becomes more of a brand than anything else. And that's a part of it which made me rethink how I look at the sports. And again, there's nothing wrong with having teams maybe sponsored or literally running by different corporations or industries, because as long as they're transparent, which most of the sports are, so I don't think there's anything wrong in that per se. But personally speaking, I'm not into it, so I haven't watched a good game in a while. And that's the part I sort of miss, because when you're watching a lot of games, maybe out of 10 games, you may end up witnessing a couple games which are outstanding, which sort of keep you hooked in, I guess. And that's true for basically every arena, right? Like every area. Like if you're not a big, say, music fan, which I'm sort of not, but if you listen to few music, that could be like a hook where you could go back to that music over and over. Talk about politics or any other subject matter for that matter, which sort of works on similar line. But let's switch back to the World Cup and professionalism of rugby. So in 1987, the first Rugby World Cup was held in Australia and New Zealand, and the inaugural winners were New Zealand. The first World Cup Sevens tournament was held at Murrayfield in '93. Rugby Sevens was introduced in the Commonwealth Games in '99 and was added to the Olympic Games of 2016. Both men and women sevens will again take place at the 2020 Olympic Games in Tokyo. What the World Cup Sevens mean? Does it mean like 7 different teams? Was played. The first Rugby Football International was played in 1871. The New Zealand 1905 touring team performed a haka. What's kamate? Is a Maori haka composed by Te Roparaha, war leader of the Ngati Tao tribe of the North Island of New Zealand. Feels like some cultural music or ritual of some sort. I am curious to figure out the Commonwealth Games. I mean, I sort of have understanding that Commonwealth countries are the countries which were once ruled by British or England, and now after we were granted independence, or after we fought to gain our independence, all of those list of countries are termed as Commonwealth. So Rugby Sevens is a variant of rugby union in which teams are made up of 7 players, playing 7-minute halves. What are you doing, Sprinkle? Instead of 15 players playing 40-minute half. Okay, so that makes sense. It's like trimmed down version of original rugby. So this first appeared in '98 edition held in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Let's just dive into Commonwealth Games. often referred to the friendly games, is an international multi-sport event involving athletes from Commonwealth of Nations. The Commonwealth of Nations, generally known simply as the Commonwealth, is a political association of 54 member states, almost all of which are former territories of the British Empire. The chief institutions of the organizations are the Commonwealth Secretariat. Okay, so like I said, Commonwealth nation. And British Empire and Commonwealth Games from 54 to 66, and British Commonwealth Games. Oh, so like pre-independence, not just India, but also the other African and the Asian countries' independence. The British Empire probably used to host games within their empire or within their regions, and seems like that gave birth to this whole Commonwealth Games. Which is nice. I mean, I feel that sport is definitely one of those things which can bridge, the gaps between different cultures, different societies. It can even cross the barriers of different languages of completely different culture. I think I already mentioned that. But yeah, the sports is definitely like the best way to sort of to kind of I'm blanking on word. I mean, it's definitely for entertainment, but at the same time, it could be a competition, right? I remember just watching different cricket matches, especially the matches or the games between countries. It feels sort of like a moment of pride when your team wins, and a moment of embarrassment when your team loses, especially if they loses very badly. But basically, it kind of gives a good outlet to kind of have a healthy competition with different countries rather than going to war. Imagine if all conflicts could be resolved based on games. I can imagine that, but I can also imagine why it wouldn't work. Because you could be like a country doing the wrong thing, but if you have good athletes, you could win the game and win the argument, even though you're exploiting others. But I'm sure like in future there would be not I shouldn't say I'm sure, but I can imagine or picture a future where we as in humans develop like enhancing we create these enhancing tools such as robots which can fight for us or to a certain degree or something. That would be super interesting, and obviously this is not a new thought. There's been like a ton of movies made on this concept, so that could be one of those things where life imitates art. And which is pretty much what's happening in most of our technological advancement, right? Like like the tech companies per se were taking the inspiration from the entertainment industry slash when I say entertainment industry, I meant specifically like Star Trek. Because in that show they were flaunting all like a new gadgets or some sort of like smart devices, but that TV show itself is probably based on different novels and books. So I can imagine someone maybe like a few hundred years back envisioned the technological advancement of our species to a degree that we sort of made that true. And the best use case, there are a lot of best use case of technology, but definitely sports is one of those areas where technology enriches the watching experience. With all the details, anyone can follow through all the different strategies. The commentators can comment on remotely, and also using the predictive models, they can predict how things would have played out if it wasn't for some sort of interruption or foul or something. So there are so many different capabilities that technology have right now within sporting industry, and I can only imagine this would just go to the next level. Maybe in the metaverse, people would be able to kind of like literally, when I say literally, I mean using VR, kind of like start playing a game, and that will enhance the overall experience of how we um, look at the game. And maybe even go a step further, and could come up with an experience where you can see the hologram of the players in your living room or something like that, instead of watching on TV. Imagine you have like a plain table, and on that table or desk you can see the hologram of like different players, and everything going on in the stadium. So that would be super cool. Like, you can not only look at one particular player per se, you can see the entire field, which you could see even on TV, but not to the same degree. And that holographic projection could take the things to the next level, because on TV you can only see a person or a player from different camera angles, right? But on a holographic surface, you would be able to see them from like 360, and not just them per se. You would be able to see all the players all the time. So basically, you can just look at the model, and maybe like feel that all the players are down there are like your minions or something. But you would be able to kind of like see the bigger pattern, and maybe and I'm sure that if that happens, that would be like one of the amazing upgrade, I guess, to the sporting industry. And I can't wait that to live in that future. Even though I'm not complaining about the future we are living in either. I feel that it comes with all kind of like drawbacks of its own, but the timeline we are living in is fantastic. I cannot be more grateful for being born in this timeline. Although I would have wished, I should have waited for 10 years before being born. I would be like in my early 20s, and that the idea of that kind of makes me feel so good. Imagine imagining what I am doing right now, doing that in my early 20s. Damn, I I don't want to go on an ego trip, but anyone who put in a lot of time, attention, and focus into a specific area, or a specific hobby or whatever it might be, but when you do that for a decade or two, then you develop the the mastery of that art form, or whatever you're working on. So to a certain degree, I feel that I wish what I know now. I wish I knew that when I was in my 20s. So that would have been super super good experience. But to be honest, I'm lazy fuck. So even if I would have known all the things I know right now, back when I was in my 20s, who knows? I probably wouldn't have valued it, and wouldn't have like done anything about it. So can't resent on something which I don't know, would have happened or whatever. But let's come back to this Wikipedia page, and I'm already on Commonwealth Games, so let's do Commonwealth of Nations. Commonwealth dates back to the first half of the 20th century, with the decolonization of the British Empire through increased self-governance of its territories. It was originally created as the British Commonwealth of Nations through the Balfour Declaration at the 1926 Imperial Conference. Hey, Sprinkles, do you want to come up? Okay, come over here. Okay. She just want to run away and hide away. The head of the Commonwealth is currently Queen Elizabeth II. The 2018 Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting appointed Charles, Prince of Wales, to be her designated successor. What is survivor? I doubt Charles Prince would survive after. Well, let me rephrase. I doubt that Queen Elizabeth will die before Charles Prince. Both are super old. I don't know how old is this dude. Is his apparent, and he's eldest son of Queen Elizabeth II. So obviously she's like old like fuck. I who knows. Member states have no legal obligation to one another, but are connected through the use of English language and historical ties. Their stated shared values of democracy, human rights, and the rule of law are enshrined in the Commonwealth Charter and promoted by quadrennial Commonwealth Games. So, who are the members? There are 54 members, so let's see, 54 countries. Where are you? Criteria. Criteria for membership of Commonwealth of Nations have developed over time from a series of separate documents. Okay, and what? These criteria were unenforceable for 2 decades. Then why do they even have the criteria in the first place? Obviously I'm skipping all of that, so I don't know what the criteria was and what was the conflict. Member states of Commonwealth of Nations. Yep, Canada, India, Australia, New Zealand, and a lot of African nations, and a couple of South American nations as well. It's a voluntary association of 54 sovereign states. Most of them were British colonies or dependencies of those colonies. Okay, they're doing alphabetically order. Alphabetically. Barbuda, this is West Indies, Caribbean. In 81. So who was the oldest member? Probably Australia. They must have got their freedom earlier than most of the other countries. One of the original dominions at the time of whatever, and the statute whatever. Although the statute was not adopted in Australia until 1942. The Australia Act 86 eliminated the remaining possibilities for the UK to legislate with effect in Australia, for the UK to be involved in Australian government, and for an appeal from any Australian code to a British code. Wait, what? It eliminated any possibilities. Hey, Sprinkles. The Bahamas in 73, Bangladesh in 72, Barbados in 66, Belize in 81, Botswana in 66, Brunei in 84, Cameroon 95, Canada 1926. Again, this is one of the other oldest, but this is 19th November 1926, and Australia is 19. Whoa, same day? Interesting. So Canada was the first among the several original dominion at the time of whatever, and we may have to revisit this. The Balfour Declaration of 1926, issued by the 1926 Imperial Conference of British Empire leaders in London, was named after Arthur Balfour, who was Lord President of the Council. Declared the UK and Dominions to be okay. May have to check it out sometime later. The Canadian Act formally ended the request and consent provisions of the Statute of Westminster 1931 in relation to Canada, whereby the British Parliament had a general power to pass laws extending to Canada at its own request. What? So Canada was the first among the several original dominion, whatever, okay. The Canada Act 1982 formally ended the request and consent provisions of the the British Parliament. So they cancelled it. Okay, that totally makes sense. Cyprus in 1961. Cyprus. Republic of Cyprus is an island country in the eastern Mediterranean Sea south of the Anatolian Peninsula. It is the third largest and third most populous island in Mediterranean and is located south of Turkey, west of Syria, and northwest of Lebanon, Israel, and the other country around there. Dominica, another, is that a country? It's an island country, okay. Okay, so Caribbean islands have like a bunch of other countries too, like, yeah, kind of makes sense. Eswatini. Seems like South Africa, yeah. 1968. Fiji in 1970. Gambia in 65. Ghana in 57. Grenada in 74. Guyana in 66, India in 47, Jamaica 62, Kenya 63. I bet New Zealand would be in 1926. That would be the only other country in the list to come. Kiribati. Oh, it's in Oceania, so it should be close to Australia. Independent island nation in the center Pacific Ocean. The permanent population is over 119,000, more than half of whom live in Tarawa Atoll, the state comprised of 32. Lesotho, Southern Africa. Malawi, East Africa. Malaysia in 57, okay. Maldives in 82. Malta in 64. Where exactly is Maldives? Indian southwest of Sri Lanka and India. Okay, not too far from India. Mauritius in 68. Mozambique in 95. Namibia in 90. Nauru. This seems like, yeah, it's close to New Zealand and Australia. In 1968, New Zealand 1926, I called it. Nigeria in 60, Pakistan in 1947, Papua New Guinea, how do you pronounce that? Papua New Guinea, Papua New Guinea, I think, not Guinea, in 1975. Rwanda in 2009. What the hell? Rwanda? Or Rwanda? Republic of Rwanda. So it's an African continent. Saint Kitts and Nevis. What in the world is that? Some Caribbean country? It's an island country. Wow, there are like so many island countries in Caribbean islands. West Indies, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Samoa in 1970, Seychelles in 76, Sierra in 61, Singapore 66, Solomon Island, again it's close to Australia and New Zealand, I bet, in 78, South Africa 1926, which totally makes sense, Sri Lanka 48, Tanzania 61, Tonga 70, Trinidad and Tobago in 62, Tuvalu in 78, Uganda in 62, UK in 26, Vanuatu in 80, and lastly Zambia in 64. What in the world is Balfour Declaration of 1926? Looked like a bunch of people came together and just declared whatever they want to declare. The Balfour's Declaration of 1926, issued by the 1926 Imperial Conference of British Empire leaders in London, was named after Arthur Balfour, who was Lord President of the Council. It declared the UK and Dominions to be sprinkles. Alright, so what is dominions to be? What exactly is dominion in the first place? The term dominion was used to refer to one of several self-governing nations of the British Empire. Dominion status was a accorded to Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Newfoundland, South Africa, and the Irish Free State at the 1926 Imperial Conference to designate autonomous communities. Okay, so basically, you're free to govern yourself, but I bet there's still, some sort of ties attached, or maybe not, because or wait. So Canada and Australia, they came up with a whatever, like, Canadian Act of 1982, I think, and Australian Act of 19 whatever. So that's when they said, okay, even though we are Dominion, we would no longer accept any decisions trickling from the British Empire. So they, even though they were technically free or technically able to govern from 1926, they were not sovereign like a republic until 1960s, 70s, I believe, until they came up with their own Australian Act or Canadian Act, or I believe. Again, I'm just thinking out loud. This is, don't take my verbal vomit as a as some sort of truth. Autonomous communities within the British Empire, equal in status, in no way subordinate one to another in any aspect of their domestic or external affairs, though united by a common allegiance to the Crown and freely associated as members of the British Commonwealth of Nations. The Inter-Imperial Relations Committee, chaired by Balfour, drew up the document preparatory to its unanimous approval by the imperial premiers on 15 November 1926. It was first proposed by South African Prime Minister J.B.M. Hertzog and Canadian Prime Minister William Lyon Mackenzie King. The declaration accepted, well, I mean, we don't want to go in all those details, do we? Well, the declaration was accepted, and what happened? Like, they formally allowed it. Okay, the declaration accepted the growing political and diplomatic independence of the Dominions in the years after World War I. It also recommended that the governors general, the representatives of the king who acted for the crown as de facto head of state in each dominion, should no longer also serve automatically as the representative of the British government in diplomatic relations between the countries. In following years, high commissioners were gradually appointed, whose duties were soon recognized to be virtually identical to those of an ambassador. The first such British high commissioner was appointed to Canada in 1928. The conclusions of the Imperial Conference of 1926 were restated by the 1930 Conference and incorporated in the Statute of Westminster of December 1931. In the statute, the British Parliament provided that it would not enact a law which applied to a dominion as part of the law of that dominion, unless the law expressly stated that the Dominion government has requested and consented to the enactment of that law. Whatever that means. I kind of have a vague idea of what that means, but I'm kind of curious about I want to check out the Canadian history. So this dude, William Lyon Mackenzie King, was a Canadian statesman. He was born in 1874 and lived till 1950, who served as the 10th Prime Minister of Canada for 3 non-consecutive terms from 21 to 26, and 30, and 35 to 48. A Liberal, he was the dominant politician in Canada from the early 1920s to the late 40s. King is best known for his leadership of Canada throughout the Great Depression and the Second World War. Trained in law and social work, he played a major role in laying the foundations of the Canadian welfare state and established Canada's international reputation as a middle power fully committed to world order. With a total of 21 years and 154 days in office, he remained the longest serving prime minister in Canadian history. Seems kind of, good leader, good prime minister. Um, Welfare state. The welfare state is a form of government in which the state protects and promotes the economic and social well-being of its citizens based upon the principles of equal opportunity, equitable distribution of wealth. This is where I'm kind of equal opportunities. That's so amazing. And equitable distribution of wealth. If that means something like UBI, then I think it's a good idea. But other than that, definitely everyone should have the baseline taken care of. This is what I think most of the government should be like. Again, this is my personal bias and take, but I feel that governments are definitely supposed to protect and promote the economic and social welfare of its citizens. Otherwise, what's the point? And then with equal opportunity, I completely agree. Equitable distribution of wealth, that's where I'm kind of like, what is equitable? How would you define it? And what are the factors you're going to consider to distribute the wealth equitably? I'm all in for giving extra support to the people who actually need it. Call it social disadvantages or any other disadvantages which happen to them rather than of any fault of theirs per se. And publicly responsibly for citizens enabled to avail themselves of the minimal, whatever that is. Let's see, early life of this dude. King was born in Berlin, Ontario, so he's born Canadian, to John King and Isabel Grace Mackenzie. His maternal grandfather was so-and-so, first mayor of Toronto. Okay, so sort of like I don't know if it's a nepotism, but definitely he had connections. His father was a lawyer, of course, and later a lecturer at law school. He attended Berlin's Center School. His father was a lawyer with a struggling practice in a small city. But his grandfather was a mayor. But grandfather from maybe mom's side? Yeah, maternal grandfather. His parents lived in a life of shabby gentility, employing servants and tutors they could scarcely afford. His parents live a shabby gentility, employing servants and tutors they could scarcely afford. Seriously, although their financial situation improved somewhat following move to Toronto in 1890, where King lived with them for several years in duplex located on Beverly Street while studying at the University of Toronto. King became a lifelong practicing Presbyterian with a dedication to social reform based on his Christian duty. He never favored socialism. Then these are all kind of so mix-up views. Socialism. He never favored socialism, but he kind of expanded a lot of social policies. So what does that mean? And where is this? Whatever. Socialism is a political, social, and economic philosophy encompassing a range of economic and social systems characterized by social ownership of the means of production. It includes the political theories and movements associated with such systems. It's kind of like a very convoluted topic. I bet different people have different meanings of socialism, and if it's like ownership of the means of production, that's part of communism. Then what is the difference between socialism and communism? And honestly, a lot of people kind of just use those two terms interchangeably. In my opinion, which I have a lot, I think communism is focused more on the economic side, and socialism is focused more on the cultural side. On the flip side, capitalism would be focused on the economic side, and maybe libertarianism, or that libertarian values would be more on the cultural side. So these are sort of like opposite polarities in economic and cultural structure, but I believe that all of these models have some benefits, some good strategies, and good way to kind of build up a healthy nation. The pain, or the issue arise when the scale is tipped unfairly on one side or the other. Like if it's unfairly tipped on the communism side, where the government sort of like owns everything, then it could be decimating to the people who want to create things of their own, and who believes in taking personal responsibility, and putting all the effort and work towards whatever they want to work on, and build something out of it. So it takes away all of that from the individuals. And on the other end, when you look at the capitalism, no matter what kind of capitalism you employ, like sooner or later the system get corrupted, and it becomes a monopoly of sort, and start exploiting the rules and the laws, and all the loopholes within those rules and laws for their own benefit. And the good side of capitalism is it encourages innovation. It allows people to kind of explore different concepts, ideas, and also give them permission to fail per se. And the promise of capitalism, so to speak, the promise is that you will be richly rewarded. And to be honest, I feel that that's a bit stretched, because there are a lot of people who deserve plenty more money than a lot of other people, I guess. But just because they put in a lot of work, they put in a lot of effort, they put in a lot of dedication towards the work, but being in the capitalistic society, sometimes it's not rewarded the way it should be. I mean, maybe they are rewarded with bonuses and other perks, I guess, but it's not the same as I bet it's not the same as say volunteering, right? Which is sort of like a social. I won't even say socialism, because that doesn't actually is correct, but community based, right? So volunteering sort of like help people to kind of volunteering help people to feel better about themselves, as well as about the society, because they're actively participating in that. Whereas when it comes down to say working voluntarily as well, there people might make money, but how much of that money is adding to the happiness? Who knows? I mean, the hell, why should I project my personal experience as a generic sentiment, right? That would be unfair. But I believe that there is a sweet spot with all of these different concepts, and especially when it comes down to um, um, socialism, communism, capitalism, and libertarianism, or individualism, or anarchy, or however whatever those terms are. But I believe that all of these systems have so many good things about them, and these all systems are bound to fail because of the same reason: human error. Because humans are messy, we gonna mess things up, and to a certain degree, that should be welcoming, because once we know that we're gonna mess things up, we'll be more alert to correcting the path rather than doubling down, because that's what happens in most of the conflicts or arguments, right? Like if you ask someone about why socialism failed, they would, or communism failed, they would always come down to, yeah, it wasn't implemented the best way, or with the spirit it was, the concept was created, or the model was constructed. And on the other end, you get the exact same answer from the pro-capitalistic people, who just say that the free market doesn't exist because the government create all these regulations to kind of like prevent the market from being free, which is again such a bullshit argument, because we clearly live in an area where, or when I say area, I mean like we clearly live in a time where companies easily buy government. So even though they have regulations, they can bypass those regulations. And imagining living in a free market when there is no regulation, do you think like people would be aware of all the shortcomings of a particular product or service? It would be impossible. It cannot function. I've had conversations slash debate with a bunch of people who kind of believe like, hey, we should be all individual, and a bunch of people, if they want to come together and do something, they should be able to do that. And I kind of agree with that sentiment. But when a bunch of people come together and they have conflict, and then who resolves that conflict? Whoever have the biggest gun. That's unfair system, right? Like that's where we need government. That's where we need an impartial entity, so to speak, which can parse out any sort of conflicts, and on top of that, which can also heal the differences between different societies. But to be honest, we don't have any such government. I doubt there is any political system which even remotely mimics that. I mean, not just from say, democratic system per se, even like in monarchy and dictatorship. I mean, dictatorship clearly, most of the times the dictators are the only people who benefit, and their family, I bet. But monarchy, for example, which been the norm of the world for millenniums, right? And these monarchs, they come up with their own problems, like they want to expand their land, or get more money, or whatever their ambition is, and they take the people who very well might be peace loving to these random wars, and create the suffering within their countries, or within their land they rule, I think. But the point being, there's no government or no system in place which wouldn't get corrupted over time. And that's where we should put in most of the focus, meaning we should put in all the protection, I guess, all the right means to prevent the systems from getting corrupted. I'm a huge fan of democracy, because that basically mean people can come in together, and everyone votes, and whoever have the majority support, they do what they promise to do. Unlike in say monarchy, where probably king has the last say, and dictatorship, where the dictator definitely have the last say. So in those systems, it's all kind of like the power is concentrated with say individuals, or a specific powerhouse or family or whatever. And with democracy, it allows, it's more like a free market, right? Like it allows everyone to participate, and even freely express what they would do, and freely point out the shortcomings of the people who failed, and very well might win election and do changes. But more than often, once they win election, they changes, and which is part of reality. And I'm not saying that we should blindly accept anyone who would just change their point of view after winning election. Um, but at the same time, we don't have any mechanisms to kind of hold these people accountable, and that's where the whole mess we are in, right? And honestly, I don't think the people in power, anyone in government or organization or deep state or whatever, I don't think they will ever let go of their power, because obviously, why would they? Sprinkles want to shit right now, so she's playing with her litter box. But yeah, why would they? They are in power after all, and they obviously they benefit by keeping people separate and divided, and and the only way to bridge these division is to have open conversations about all of these various ideas, right? And not just have a conversation, but should be mocked and should be foolproof. Because if someone is sort of saying that they have the perfect system with which the society should work, then we should pick that system apart and try to figure out why, in all the scenarios where it would work, all the scenarios where it wouldn't work, and all the scenarios where it would be disastrous. And trust me, every system have all these three attributes. It's just a matter of different timeline, I guess, like, different depending on the context of the situation. The things could change, or any of these systems could become a super corrupted, rotten system, and that's where I'm sort of I won't say worried, because I'm not worried even a bit, but to a certain degree, I'm kind of unsure of what direction all of these world democracies are heading towards, because this is the best system which we have, and because of their personal corruption or whatever, all the people in power are fucking up this system, and if this system end up being dismantled, then whatever system come out of it, it won't be first of all, it won't be peaceful. The transition itself won't be peaceful, but at the same time, whatever system gonna come out of it, because of the power, what do you call it, the power gap or power vacuum, yeah. So if any system sort of like suddenly transform, right, like the power vacuum always favor the powerful, and those powerful pretty much always tend to be authoritarian, because they got the power, so they want to tell everyone what to say, what to think, what to do, how to live, and even control all other aspects of other people's life. And that I can imagine the feeling of that power, and I don't want that power. Because I'm a kind of person who would rather chill out and just enjoy the things from afar, rather than fighting for office, and running for office, and go there and try to change the system. Because sooner or later, like I said, there are a lot of people who go into politics with good intention, but sooner or later they get corrupted because of whatever reason, and that sort of fuck up the entire system even more. So and I'm not saying that I'm gonna get corrupted per se. First of all, I would never get into any office, but if I do, I don't think I'm ever gonna get corrupted. But that's a bold statement, and also the corruption itself is debatable. I mean, what exactly is corruption? And if you're talking about strictly monetary corruption, then no, I would never be monetary corruption. And then we can talk about like the different type of corruption, right? Like moral corruption. No, I won't do that either. I mean, personally, I don't like to screw over anyone, um, because that's not healthy. I mean, first of all, it comes back in some other form and bite back in your ass. So what's the point? At the same time, if causing more suffering in the world is not an ideal solution. But when I say corruption, I mean I might get used to the new change, right? The new environment. So if I were a lawmaker and if I were surrounded by other lawmakers, then uh, because that's my job would be, and then the people surrounded me would have some sort of influence on me, right? And we can debate about what kind of influence and what degree of influence, but regardless, when you work with other people, you do sort of rub each other, right? Like you influence others and they influence you, so you do change, and those changes, while you're changing, feels like the right change. But plenty of times, people change so much that they are complete, that they end up being completely opposite to where they started. And I uh, and coming back to my personal intention, I guess. And why am I talking about my personal intention? Because why not? Why not? I have good, huge ego, and I love to kind of like make these imagination. I guess every imagination is mental imagination, but I like to make random imagination and go through that. So if I do if I end up getting in an office with actual power to change things, what would I do? The first thing, I think the first thing, well, I'm repeating myself. The first thing I'm gonna do is reach out to all the experts from technology and bring them in and try to figure out like why our technology is fucking up everyone, and how we can undo that, or even better, like upgrade the technology to to um, to to a different level where technology is helping us, symbiotically working us to become better rather than hurting us, and eating away all of our attention, and then inducing different emotional stress. So that's the first thing I would do, to kind of like look at the solutions, from technology for the existing problems, which is basically what I believe we as human have been doing forever. I mean, fire was a technology or a tool, and it helped us to survive. It helped our brain to grow. That's my hypothesis, and I think there are other people who would agree that the cooked food allowed our brain to kind of like grow multifold in a short period of time. And on top of that, fire kind of like protected us from all the predators, and also kept us warm. So, that was one of the best technology ever. And likewise, there were, other technologies like wheels, and then there were like different metal technologies, different ages like iron, copper, bronze age. Was it a copper age? I don't remember, but you know what I mean. And all of these technologies were helpful, also were painful, or suffering inducing. And over the period of time, people learn to live with this technology, and also uh, figured out like what's the best way they can implement the technology to live the best life, I guess. But thanks to this technology, I can live stream and reach out to potentially billions of people, but realistically zero people, and and this 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 helped me to kind of uh, like jog my memory and go to the concepts which I haven't thought about in a while. So thanks for that technology. And I guess I should wrap it up. It's been over an hour and it's already two. Wow, it's 3 here. So I'm definitely gonna wrap this up. So I hope you guys have peace within you and peace around you, and you stay peaceful.